So my name is Robert Ireland. I'm here today to talk to you about universal programs, universal places. But before I do that, I just wanted to point out that some of you may or may not know you are in a universal place, and I'll get to that and talk about that in a little bit. So just kind of take notice as I speak. So when I began to look into a particular issue, I thought of primarily my hometown, which you've all learned about today, a lot about Massachusetts, but I'm going to take you across the state to western Massachusetts in the red there and focus in on Berkshire County and even more specifically Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So when I began to examine Pittsfield, Massachusetts, I took a look first at the population, just over 44,000, and I began to talk with people within the community, my own community, so it was easy to do, and read the local newspapers. What kind of issues were we tackling as a community? And something that I noticed, it's kind of a tale of two cities right now, two ends of the spectrum. One is an aging population. As I researched, I found 17.6% of the people in Pittsfield are 65 years and older, and that number is certainly increasing. The other end of the spectrum, we took a look at the youth. Just under 6,000 students enrolled in our school district. Out of that, just under 6,000, 65% are low income, and that is also increasing. And they also identify as at risk. Focusing in a little bit further, I began to look at the disabled population. And as we see, according to this statistic in 2000, just about 0.25% of our population is disabled. So what does that exactly mean? We looked at it and we saw that age 21 and through 64, about 50% of the disabled population is physically disabled. Another 11% sensory issues, sensory disabilities, meaning hearing, sight, or both. As we got into the elderly population, ages 65 and over, that number stayed steady, 50% of the population physically disabled. So as I looked into these issues, I began to think about a particular organization that I could work with that would have some interest along what I was thinking on. And as I talked with people within the community, they led me to a particular organization, the Barrington Stage Company. Barrington Stage shares some of my ideas in the sense that they are looking to get people participating in theater, in community. They're located in the downtown. They're not-for-profit. They moved to Pittsfield in 2005 with the particular interest of engaging a community. And they took on older space, older existing structures. Those structures have since needed to be renovated. In 2006, they started to undertake this. And now they've taken on other structures within the community and are also bringing those structures up to code and so on and so forth. And one thing most important with my background in education is award-winning educational programming for at-risk youth. They're engaging the youth population. This is very important because Pittsfield has a history of high dropout rates, which have leveled off for the most part, but we're starting to really notice this. We want our students to graduate, move on into productive members of the community, productive members in higher education as well. So I was able to partner with them, and we sat down and we talked. Just had a conversation. So we have these two ends of the spectrum, an aging population and also our at-risk youth. How do we tackle that? Well, as I spoke with them, they rose the issue of universal design. And we talked about some of the causes that are going on with the renovations of the buildings, some of the educational programs, and there's limited staff knowledge of universal design, as many of you may have limited knowledge of universal design, and hopefully after today you'll have a bit better of an understanding. So we're all coming from a myriad of backgrounds. And there's always a lack of resources. You heard that's kind of a common theme in our projects today. So the problem came to be is there's really no plan in action, right? We're learning about things. We want to put a plan in effect. And the effects are, there's just, with a lack of a plan, with a lack of understanding, there's really a lack of accessibility. So we're looking to increase that for sure. So, here begs the question, what is universal design? And the most simple explanation, literal explanation I can provide is it's the design of products and environments for the use of all. And when I looked into providing an example for you all, is just this, sliding glass doors, right? We kind of take them for granted. We use them every day. They are a product, they are a design to be used by everyone. Whether it's myself walking through the door, a mother with a stroller, a person using a wheelchair, a person maybe using a walking device, or simply, a dad carrying his young son or daughter through the doors. They're used by everyone. So I challenge you, when I talked about that you are in a universal place, can maybe some of you point out some of the universal design concepts being implemented here in this room today? Very observant. Very observant, right? Some of us that don't have a disability with hearing may not even notice this, right? Clearly labeled. Clearly labeled. And if I have a need for an assisted listening device, I know where to look. I see it, it's clearly labeled, and I can then proceed to using it. One more, maybe. Handrails, right. Handrails. We see them right here in the middle of the room. One thing about handrails is they're not always at the right height, right? We're all different sizes. Appropriate height is very important. Someone using a wheelchair is able to come in, and the desk is the appropriate height. Other things around the room, the fire alarm. Someone with issues with hearing, the fire alarm flashes. Push bars on the doors. Push bars on the doors, very important, right? We're able to get out easily and efficiently for someone using some devices. So signage is a big thing, right? Appropriate signage. We see it at the front doors here. We see it with the assisting listening devices, exit signs, and so on and so forth. Being able to look, being able to be aware of where to find these things, very important. So that's an example of universal design. Research methods I implemented along with my organization were obviously literature reviews. We read, we took into consideration particular literature revolving around universal design. Also, membership in the Massachusetts Cultural Council. We wrote a proposal. I helped on the writing of that proposal, and we were able to gain entry, one of 10 organizations in Massachusetts, to gain entry into the Innovation and Learning Network, where we're able to have an abundance of resources at our disposal, participation in webinars that I was able to participate and learn a great deal, as well as other staff members. In those webinars, we had expert users come out to particular sites and take a walk through. And you may be asking, what is an expert user? It's simply a person with a disability that comes in to the area, says, you may be lacking in this particular area or that area. Most of the time it's signage, right? I want to be able to see where I need to go, right? In the example here, right, assisted listening devices. We're able to look and find those, right? So it's often a key factor. So key informant interviews, talking with folks, talking with those expert users, talking with members of the Massachusetts Cultural Council, using your resources. And here's an example. Here, Jolan was kind enough to call this up for me. This is our list of resources. As some of you will find, it's interesting here. They're starting and beginning to use logic models, right? So they're also learning about the similar things that we're learning about in this program. So that was very convenient in being able to kind of talk the same language. Thank you, Jelon. Moving forward. So, Barrington Stage Company, where are we now? We've gained $10,000 as a result of being a member in the Innovation and Learning Network. So that money is being implemented in the organization for things like signage, for things like trainings. Very important. We talked about that lack of resources. Some resources are beginning to come in. This has been a help, for sure. Participation in the Innovation and Learning Network, I've really harped on that. That has been crucial, essential. And certainly, increased staff knowledge. Right now where we stand, the organization, the administration staff, the theater production staff has been involved in these webinars, but there's a whole bunch of staff that come on board in the summertime to volunteer as ushers and such, which I will be doing when I go back for sure. There's the show, Man of La Mancha, which I'm looking forward to volunteering on. But the most important too is these UD concepts are being implemented, and I have here, some of our signage, right? Very important. Where are we headed? Where are we headed? We're moving towards now a universal design plan, right? We've talked about things, we've gained our resources, now we're moving forward with a plan. That plan is including further trainings for staff such as our summer staff and so on. Continued fundraising. I also volunteered as in the development office creating donor profiles. The organization went down to Florida. They spoke with some of our donors down there, had events, and were able to raise funds as a result, which I'm still looking to gain the information on the benefits of how much money was actually raised. And something I've been looking forward to here and just started to kind of embrace the concept of is information sharing with other community organizations, right? How do we spread the word? How do we get universal design out into our community? Which brings me to my next point is UD, so what? What's the importance of this? Well, the importance of this is just there, participation. We have to be participating, right? UD is a concept that it can't stand alone. It can't stand alone. If participation is the cornerstone of community, then we have to think of UD as the mortar that holds together the foundation for further community revitalization, and that is important. So that's kind of where I'm at with the concept of UD. This is why it's so important, because we all want vibrant communities. Lessons learned. There's been a lot of lessons learned for sure, as we all know, and you guys have been bombarded with our lessons learned. But first-year students, you may certainly be happy to hear this. It's about flexibility, right? We all have to be flexible in what we're doing. It's important. If we go in with a rigid approach, it's talked about, right? We have these ideas concrete in our head. We can't go in with that approach. We have to be flexible. We have to be willing to have conversations, establishing that communication with the organization. What are their needs? What are the needs of the community? And project needs to be fluid, right? It's going to move in a lot of different directions. There's a lot of different variables, and it's important that we're able to notice those. So, thank you very much.